Hello, everybody. Welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. I'm your host, BMR. We got a great show lined up for you here today. Peterson-Mosby or Mosby. I should have got that name from her earlier. Paranormal investigator, 25 years. Also, we're going to talk a little UFO contact and a bunch of other great things. I'll be joined in a minute with Krista, my lovely hostess. If this is your first time here, please subscribe, give a thumbs up, and hit the alert bell, and share us out. You can find us on YouTube at Texas Front Porch and Bigfoot Michigan Rob channels, both shows being streamed there today. We're also on Odyssey Radio and iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and wherever podcasts are found. We're also on KPNL Radio, thanks to the lovely Selene for that out there in Oregon. Find us on Facebook at Texas Front Porch. Paracryptid Encounters, Gmail for text. Mine is beyondbmr@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to Texas Front Porch and Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. If you like and want to help support us, the Super Chat is open. Yes, the Super Chat is open. And long after the show ends, the Super Thanks is also available if you care to donate. We appreciate the support. Check out our channels on YouTube, our About pages, our description pages to keep you updated with events going on in this community around us. Also, don't forget on Mondays is Texas Front Porch at 7:30 in the East. Tuesdays, Van Buren Variety. That's on at 8 o'clock in the East. Follow it up by the next day, Thursdays, Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, 1 o'clock in the East. And the Blondes, the Booze Paranormal Podcast, 9 o'clock in the East. Fridays, again, you want more woo with the booze? You got the Blondes, the Booze, and the Woo. They're on at 9 o'clock in the East. I think I skipped Jason on Wednesday. Jason McLean Questions Everything. Great show, fantastic show. We got a great lineup starting next Wednesday, talking the Nephilim. We got a series dedicated to that. And don't forget my friend Jessica Jones, Spaced Out Radio. You can find her 10 o'clock in East Saturday and Sunday. And don't forget the Spaced Out Radio Fan Party, the second annual fan party hosted by Dave Scott. That's May 19th through the 21st. There'll be a lot of speakers there. I think I'll be in attendance speaking. We're doing a live YouTube show from there. It's going to be awesome. I even think the Bearded Wonder Tex is going to show up and be there. So thank you for that. With that being said, thanks for everybody out there that joins us. I appreciate each and every single one of you for joining us, and your support is certainly appreciated. So I'm going to bring up Krista. So Krista, how are you today?
I'm good. I've been working from home today, and it's been kind of nice.
Don't you like that, working from home?
Yeah, well, I like the fact that I can do it when I want. There's times I need to go in, but today, I'm like, I can be at home. I can get my dishes done. I can get my shower done. I can be here at noon and still get my work done.
Yeah, for me, it's like not even working. Like you said, you can do your work. You can take care of things around the house.
Yep.
Right now I'm doing this. I got a load of laundry going on right now. It's raining. All my snow is gone. So I'm pretty happy.
Yep. I hear you. I'm with you on this.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. We have a great guest. Teri is coming on. And, again, paranormal, UFOs, cryptids. So we got a smorgasbord of high strangeness going on.
Yep. And she's a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge. I know her personally. I've done several investigations with her in the paranormal world. However, the UFO stuff, I'm excited to talk to her about because I've never done that.
We try to make it different here on all the shows across the platform. I'm learning more and more about it. So I thought, what a way to break it in and having Teri on. And with that being said, I am going to bring her up.
Sounds good.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Teri. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I do appreciate you taking your time out to come join us. And before we get started, why don't you give a brief background about yourself, what you're all about, what you've been up to, and we'll get the show rolling from there.
Okay, well, I've always been interested in the paranormal. Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, UFOs was a big thing when I was a kid. then you kind of grow out of it. But since about the last 30 years, you got research now. It's easier through the internet. So I started back into the paranormal, and just about the last 5 years, I've been back in the UFOs and doing research and keeping up with Ben Hansen and all of those guys. And then I kind of hit Bigfoot, and then somebody and somewhere on Facebook I saw Dogman, and then Chrissy got into it, and well, there went another rabbit hole. So
Yeah.
I do run a paranormal team called After Dark Paranormal, based out of Quincy, Illinois, and so I have a team and travel around and hit some UFO conventions every now and then. So I'm just kind of everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like me, and you know, it's great because you had mentioned Krista and the paranormal, because you know they're part of our team now for the past several months, and I'm learning more about the paranormal, and they're great additions to Blondes and Blues Paranormal Podcast. Go subscribe if you haven't already. And so, yeah, you know, I'm like a sponge when it comes to this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning every day from the girls over there on the booze, you know, about the paranormal, because I've had a lot of paranormal encounters now that I can affirm are, because you know, they know what they're talking about. So now I go with what they have to say. And we had Jessica Jones, you know, she talks about her great remote viewing, about opening your third eye. So I'm learning about all that. So that's awesome. And now, you know, we're going to talk in the first segment, we're going to talk about UFOs and the contact, because that's something that I'm interested in learning more about and doing more shows on. And you had made mention, Teri, that you were studying the work of Dr. Stephen Greer. Now, when the only thing I know really, I know quite a bit about him, and I know that either you love him or you hate him.
Yeah.
You think he's a kook, or you think he's just a fabulous scientist, or I guess a person that's a ufologer.
Mm-hmm.
So in the CE5, which we were talking briefly backstage about how we can make contact if we have or we haven't. And I like to maybe go over that a little bit here to start the show, because I want to learn about it, and I think a lot of our audience would too.
I honestly had never even heard of it until, I talked to Teri about it. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
See, and I can't believe it. Dr. Greer came up with this like in the 90s. So he's been trying to get it out there through different documentaries that he's made. But the CE5 actually stands for Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind. There is a CE1 is when there's a visual sighting of a UFO. People might see like some strange lights in the sky. Close Encounters 2 is when they actually show up on radar, or people, they find crop circles out in a field or something like that. CE3 is when somebody reports that they actually saw a craft with occupants. They can see the pilots. CE4 is when a human has actually had an experience, that's been abducted, and they've had their time on the craft and come back to Earth. And the CE5 is where humans are actively trying to make contact with ETs and bring them on down to our level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before we get too in depth with the CE5 part aspect of this, let me ask you your personal opinion. Do you think that people really have you get abducted and probed? And probe is such a, I hate even using that term, but research on, do you believe that does happen?
Yeah, I really do. There's a gentleman that I've talked to. I've never met him in person, but I have talked to him on the internet. Terry Lovelace. He actually was in the military, and him and his buddy just got this wild idea to go camping in Missouri. It was down by Fort Leonard Wood, in that area. They went camping and they just got sleepy. The short story is they got sleepy. They fell asleep out on this rock. The UFO big triangle came and picked them up, and then they remember being on board and having needles stuck in them. And then they remember they were dumped back into their tent, and I mean, their boots wasn't tied, their clothes was disheveled. They saw the ETs actually walking across the forest and getting back on. And I mean, the mental and physical things that they had happen, if half of that book is true, it'll blow your mind. Like, I've read it so many times because you just can't fathom even half of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm a person that I believe in everybody's story, and probably up until I had a Bigfoot encounter, to be honest with you, Terry, I probably would be more skeptical. I think that healthy skepticism is something we should all be aware of, right?
Oh, I do
But
too.
you know, but who am I to say that people aren't being abducted by aliens? I saw Bigfoot clear as the bell, clear as day, right? And ever since that experience, I'm just so open to these other subject matter, paranormal, ghosts, UFOs, aliens, cryptids. So I think that it's open and everybody sees these things. And when we get into this, do you think that now you hear mostly about the grays that are the ones we see a lot? No, there's reptilians, there's a whole other, I don't know all of them. There's 50 different varieties, I guess, from what I understand. So do you think that when they come here and people do get abducted, do you think they have nefarious intentions, or are they just because their technology is so out of this world, no pun intended? What's the purpose behind researching human beings and abducting them?
Well, and this was just brought to my attention. They were talking about when children see an ET, they go into such detail about the being. And it sounds crazy, but you have never seen a picture, that somebody's drawn trying to tell you what they saw, and they never have genitals. So to be honest, I think we're used as a breeding machine for them. I don't think maybe they can't make their own, so like they breed with us. I mean, that I don't know what they're here for. And now that I follow the CE5, I think they're trying to save our planet.
Wow.
Because we're so stupid and make bad choices.
We're destroying the planet.
We are.
You know?
And I think they're trying to save it. And actually, in one of the documentaries that Stephen Greer, and I have never heard this before, Roswell was the only base in the world that stored the atomic bombs back in the 40s when they were first designed. And he said the U.S. government shot down those spacecraft that they caught in 1947 for the Roswell crash because they wanted their technology. And I think they were trying to surround Roswell, trying to save the world.
Yeah.
You kind of make an interesting point here. And again, this is going to go all over the place because now I just remember, I do remember there that in talking with people that are in the field and seeing a couple shows that I watch and research I've done, I can't imagine. I came up with a statistic that there was at least, and I'm not going to name all the locations because I don't know them 100%, that there were actually especially during the Cold War, that Russia or the United States, we actually had our missiles ready to go and they were ready to be launched. In fact, I heard a story about Russia was going to launch, and what happened is that for whatever reason, they lost all of their technology to make it happen. And some people suggest that the UFOs were the ones that scrambled their technology to not inflict World War III.
Yeah, I have heard that. And they're seen a lot around the nuclear bases, not only in the United States, but around the world. I mean, they've got photographs where there's strange little silver ships up there flying around. Wow. So, I mean, are they taking air samples? Are they seeing what we're doing with them? I mean.
Yeah. I honestly, I have so many questions. I just, I don't know where to begin or where to,
Well, I mean, I don't think they come here. They obviously don't need the technology because we're stealing it from them, but,
Yeah.
So what else are they here for?
Right.
And they've been here, we've got tens of thousands of year-old cave drawings. And I mean, it's clearly a UFO. I was a big fan of Chariots of the Gods. I remember reading that when I was a teenager and couldn't get enough. Well, where did those pictures come from? I mean, that's an astronaut sitting in a cockpit of a rocket,
Wow. Yeah. It's some pretty incredible stuff, really. A lot of people believe that like they're here and they abduct them. Why do you think they do? I understand like for the helping us. However, when people get abducted, they're traumatized. So
Yes.
I guess, how do they pick and choose? I mean, it's all kinds of questions. I know you can't answer that, but
Right.
all kinds of stuff that run through my head,
But it seems like once they pick you, you will have several encounters your lifetime. They come back.
Yeah.
I mean, Terry Lovelace says that he'll see him over his backyard, hovering over his backyard, and he still misses time sometimes. So,
Sure.
I mean,
yeah.
It's very interesting that you said that, Terry, because whether it's you're talking UFOs, whether you're talking cryptids, they always say a lot of people make mention that and even in the paranormal world with Krista, once you've had an experience of any of these things, you're more apt to have other encounters or experiences.
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like the paranormal. I mean, we've got people on our team that are new. Oh, well, I better see a ghost. I better see a ghost. I guarantee you they will not see anything because you got to go in there with the assumption it would be nice, but I mean, let them come to you.
Yeah.
But once you draw them in,
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that, all of these entities, they find you. They like, if they want you to, they will show themselves to us. You're not going to find them if that's your intent.
Right.
Like Chris always says, what's your intent? And Terry, you just mentioned something that I want to get into is about the contact. Now, this CE5, this is a method that is applied, according to Stephen Greer, that he's worked on and you've studied for a couple of years to set up some groups. Explain to us about what that's all about and how this is used to contact these craft or these beings.
Well, I don't know if you've ever heard of the random number generator. They're all over the world, and they usually run zeros and ones, and and I've heard it even in the Bigfoot world and ETs. You're contacted more through telepathy than actual language and talking back and forth. So they actually have scientific studies where they took these random generators and had people think of, oh, I want to see more zeros and ones, and they will triple and quadruple just through your mind. I mean, that's just, people don't think meditation is that strong and you can flip things like that. And they've even went so far as they put 2,000 people in a high crime city with 200,000 people. The 200,000 didn't know they were coming, and these 2,000 were there for like a week or two, and they actually meditated. Crime went down, murders went down, trips to the ER went down. Was that a coincidence? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the CE5, you kind of do the same thing. You can do it as a group or you can do it individually, but it's mostly like you can send out tones, and that could be singing bells, or they actually have, Dr. Greer has even made videos of that. And then you meditate, and you want to get to a spot where your mind is not only clear, but it's almost like you're remote viewing and you can visualize at the same time. And you just kind of like send signals out to the universe and try and make contact to see. And it's telepathy. It's like when you finally run into one, it's hard to explain. It's like once you make contact with them, it's almost like you can see images of maybe a spacecraft or a face of an ET, and then you go backwards. And when I send it out, I kind of like go to the moon, and then I go to the Milky Way, and then I'll either reach out to a planet or beyond the Milky Way. Then you have to bring them back. And once you invite them in, you bring them back by going in the reverse, but you bring them to Earth. Then you would bring them and show them in your mind, North America. And then I live in Illinois, so I'm going to bring them to Illinois. And then I'm going to show them like maybe some surrounding things in Quincy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see a craft every time, but it's almost like they'll answer you back, or it's talking in telepathy where you've seen, or heard ET stories about where they've talked to people, but they weren't moving their lips. It's all in your mind kind of thing, but it's your conscious mind is hooked to the world and everything with the world. So, I mean, if you can change a random generator or a city, I mean, that's what you want in your mind, to get yourself to meditate to that point to where you can remote view it's all in your head.
So
And
do
I
you
mean,
do this
like you said
outside?
at the beginning, a lot of people don't like Dr. Greer. You either love him or hate him. There's no middle view, because it does sound wonky. But the more you put into it, it's just amazing that you can do that.
Yeah. So is this something like that you would do outside, and while you're doing it, try to watch the skies too?
You
Or
can actually do the meditation and the tones in your house, but I prefer to do it outside.
Okay.
And then actually you can get one of the, like, if you see something strange, you got to like get used to like tracking the planets and the satellites and all that, because there's all kinds of stuff up there flying around. But when you see something flying erratically and changes directions at the top of a hat, then you can send up like a laser beam,
Okay.
around the craft. And I have got them to where they blinked back.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you have something planning on coming up that I could come up to Quincy and sit with you and
Well,
we
I'm trying to,
together?
that's what I'm trying to do. I've actually started a group, and I'm trying to like getting some people together to do that.
Yeah. Well, count me in, seriously. And I
Okay.
know Brandy's interested too. So
Yeah.
for sure, we'll come up and do that with you. I'd love to try it,
Yeah, and let me excuse me, Terry. And again, this is something that takes a lot of practice, I imagine, right? You just can't sit out in your backyard and take a meditation for the first time and try to make contact, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
have, I guess, like Krista says, it's your intentions, and it's you got to probably put your mind in a clear space. Does that make sense?
Right. It took me a while to get to where you could get your mind to that state. But, you just practice 10 minutes a day, and, maybe next week you're going for 15. But, and the more you practice, the faster you can get there. I mean, it's like everything else. It's just like you just train your mind to get there and quiet down. And the more it seems like the more you do it, you get there faster.
Well, and that's, you talked about it in the meditation, so I've been doing this for a long time, and I started meditating when I got into the metaphysics side of it.
Right.
So it took me a little while to figure that out, to get my mind to stay focused. So I feel like it'd be the same thing doing it for this too. Like you just, try it a few minutes at a time and then work your way up. That makes total sense.
Well, and how I started, somebody suggested to me, you start from 100 and count backwards. And as soon as you lose that and you start thinking about doing the dishes, you got to start all over at 100. Well, by the time you do that 4 or 5 times, you're really going to focus on getting to 1.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool. Very cool.
Terry, you made mention that you don't think that aliens are here to hurt us, and they want to save our planet. Is your beliefs and what you've been doing over the last 2 years. But let me ask you though, there are, when you're doing this practicing CE5 or you're just a ufologist in general, we have all heard about these other aliens though that aren't so nice like reptilians. Are you afraid that sometimes that we could contact or get in contact with an alien or extraterrestrial that we really probably shouldn't?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like working in the paranormal, talking through a Ouija board. You don't know what's coming. You're inviting them in. Right. But when I do invite them in, I send out or try to send out my best intentions, hoping that you're only going to attract, the nice ones. But that's no guarantee. Right. I mean, I would think there's probably, like you said, there's 50 to 70 considered races of ETs out there. So they all can't be nice and have good intentions.
Right. Yeah.
If they're anything like people, you got to have some bad ones out there.
And I always say this too, just like human beings, there's good and bad humans,
right?
Cryptids, paranormal, ghosts, and probably aliens for that matter as well.
Right. But if they wanted to annihilate us, they could have done it a long time ago.
For sure. I do think the planet's safe. I worry about the yahoos upstairs running the planet, right?
Right.
Well, and that's just it. Once you get into Dr. Greer, he goes into where, and I have several books. This is a whole new rabbit hole, but the government cover up and the controversy and the lying that they've done for the last 70 years to all of us because they think we're stupid and can't handle it. Who knows what's out there? But Dr. Greer talks about when it does come around. I mean, the government has come forward and said, okay, yeah, we admit there's something out there flying around that we don't know what it is. And they were done that big release a couple years ago, and half of the pages was blacked out, but whatever, so they have come forward and mentioned it. But Dr. Greer believes that it'll all be a game to where, oh my God, you all better be scared because they're going to come down here and wipe us out. And that's how they want everybody afraid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that.
So, he's trying to get out there to do this CE5 and be ambassadors for peace when we're making contact with these individuals, because we can't be the only ones out there.
Right.
I just can't believe it.
And that makes sense. I like that. I like your verbiage there, ambassadors for peace.
Yep.
That makes total sense. What do you think about people who, you see on that Skinwalker Ranch TV show and stuff, like they use lasers to contact? What do you think about doing that type of thing to make contact?
We do shoot lasers. I mean, just make sure if it's blinking, don't shoot an airplane because you will get arrested for that. But don't actually shoot at, I kind of draw a circle if I see a craft, or make sure that I'm hitting my beam way off of the center of them just in case.
Right. Okay.
Because there's so much, of our government stuff up there flying around too. So
sure.
That's how I got it to blink back. If you send a signal, it actually blinked back and sent a response. So
Right.
I mean, it's hard to explain. If you blink your laser beam 3 times and something beams back 3 times, you're like, okay.
Right, exactly. Well, see, so Erin Eck was talking about, she has a friend that went out and did something somewhere over in Kansas City. There's a ranch over there that does that with the lasers, where people can go out there and they
Oh, really? Well, that'd be cool.
With the laser thing. So she was the one telling me about it. And,
I thought they almost do a CE5 protocol.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if that's what we're actually doing out there, because I told her, I was like, well, let's look into it. Sign me up. I'm all about it.
Well, I know several people. Let me close that door because Chucky's hollering. That's my umbrella talking to you.
Yeah, I heard somebody say they're talking about the bird.
Well, these people are calling themselves to head back the door and invite himself in.
Yes. Teri has birds and dogs and fish.
And he's usually quiet. And I left the light on for him because he doesn't like sitting in the dark.
Right.
That's why I just got up. I thought I had a bird in the house. I said, what the hell's going on?
Oh, no, that's my umbrella. Sorry.
Terry's. What do you feel like the people say that they walk among us, that they look like you and I. Do you feel that's a true statement, or do you not?
Oh, they're here. Yeah. I think they're here.
Yeah. Do you think they look like you and I?
Well, and I wish I could remember the story, but I was at an event somewhere, and this lady came up to me and told me that she'd done this show, and I want to say it was in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. And this is going to sound so far-fetched, but she was at a taco wagon getting some food, and there was a man in front of her that had a hoodie on. And when she reached out, she noticed that his hand looked funny, but she didn't pay no attention to it until he turned around and looked at her, and she will swear to God that it was a reptilian. It had funny slit eyes like a snake, and his skin was kind of green and shiny, and he turned around and he smiled at her and walked away. And she said out there in that area, the Air Force actually flies with UFO craft down the canyons. People can't see them, but they say they have races. I mean, it sounds so far-fetched, but you know what if?
Right.
I got to take a quick minute for 30 minutes into the show, and I posted something that I screwed up. I'm still bad with the navigating. My buddy Duke Sullivan, you all know from my World Bigfoot Radio, friend of mine. I've known him for a few years. He's got some difficulties going on. I'm not getting to Duke's personal stuff. He had a roommate, kind of effed him over. Limited income for Duke. I'm not getting in his personal affairs, but if any of my mods out there can drop his PayPal, I appreciate it. Go help out Duke. I love the guy, and anytime we need help, I like to pass the message along, because I'd hope you would do the same for me or Krista or Teri or anybody. So if you could, and I know Duke's a proud guy, he don't accept charity, but I'm doing this for him. Help him out if you could, and of course our super chat's open as well. And who knows, maybe I'll donate it over to Duke. I don't know. I'm BSing you, Duke. Love you. So sorry about that. Moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, somebody did send his. Lily Pond did.
Yeah, Lily Pond's the best. She's got the links to everybody, and I love you, Lily. Thanks for that. Yeah. And all my other mods as well. I love you all equally.
Yeah, for sure. Wow, crazy. So I do have more questions for you, but I don't know if Rob has any.
No, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
So Terry, you had told me one time that you were going down the road or something, and you seen like a spacecraft.
I've probably seen 4 of them close up over my years of searching for them, but that one that you're talking about was about 6 years. We were actually coming home from an investigation at the Cheney Mansion. So
Yep.
this would have put this thing between Jerseyville and Carrollton. It's out in the middle of nowhere. We see it. It's right on the tree line on the highway. 3 o'clock in the morning. We are the only souls out on this lonely stretch of highway. And I was with a friend of mine, and we could see it ahead of us. So we get closer, and I'm like, what the hell is that helicopter sitting over those trees? You could just see a couple red lights. So we get up to it. I stopped the car in the middle of the highway because it is a black triangle. It had a red light on every corner. I rolled down the windows. It's not making no noise, and it's right there on the side of the highway above the trees.
Right.
It was probably maybe the size of a football field, maybe a little bigger, and it was just sitting there. And then we pick up our cell phones? That's the weird thing with these two. You'll hear people make reports, and nobody thinks of like picking up their cell phone and take a picture. We just sit there with our mouths hanging open going, do you see what I'm seeing? And it rotated real slow. And I mean, when it shot off, it was gone. I mean, it cleared where you couldn't even see anymore. And we could probably see, the stretch of the countryside there. And this thing was just gone.
Wow. I remember you telling me about that. I don't know. Like you said, you hear people, why didn't you get your phone? But to me, I don't know that I would either, just because
we were too busy staring at it. I mean, it's just, and my cell phone was right there, beside us. We both had cell phones. This is like, and then like when it's gone, we're like, why didn't we take a picture?
Yep. I could see that. Definitely see that.
Terry, a lot of times I was told this, and hell, maybe I experienced, I don't. They say a lot of kids, because you mentioned kids earlier, a lot of them have their first encounters with anything between age, especially with alien abduction at a young age. And the age that I came up with, I was told was between like 5 and like 8 years old. And I remember right around 7 years old having probably my first. Back then, I thought I was dreaming, and I think it was a ghost. But when it comes to alien abduction, do a lot of these aliens abduct kids or get into the kids at an early age so they can groom them for, perhaps, as you may mention, making hybrid humans or alien hybrids? Do you think there's any merit to that?
I think so. And I've read a lot of cases on kids, and it seems like when they come to their room, they're either like dressed as clowns, or the children see them as clowns. But I mean, they can describe the craft. A kid that young couldn't lie over being in a big room with lots of lights, and it's all white, and these things have big eyes, and yeah.
Right, exactly. What do you think about, like, you hear of people not like getting implanted? Do you think those are just to keep track of them, or what do you think the implants are?
I think they're tracking. Terry Lovelace has one in his leg.
Yeah, I know somebody else who has one, and I don't want to go down this hole right now. We can do it later. But he was doing he was out with the Bigfoot, and he thinks he was zapped like through Bigfoot, but then now he has an implant in his arm. So.
Well, I know that one that Terry has, he just had he was a runner, so he thought he was having trouble with his knees. There's no scar, there's no entry point. There's just this little metal thing with 2 little antennas on it, and when you put like a microphone down by it, it's giving off a signal. It's just sitting there sending the signal to somebody, and yeah.
Does he say why he doesn't try to have it removed?
He actually, how I learned about him was the Kling brothers was at Ashmore, and Barry and them was supposed to do a documentary when he had it out, and I'm not sure what happened, because this was been 5-6 years ago.
Right.
So I mean, I know he still has it in him, but
it's kind of interesting, and you've probably heard this, Terry, more so than I've heard. That's why I'm asking. Let's say that, okay. Well, okay, I heard some feedback, but let's say that you have an implant, whether you got it as a kid, a young adult, or a grown adult. A lot of us have gone through situations where You break an arm, you break a leg, you go to the hospital, you got to get x-rays. And all of a sudden, they do a scan and they see some foreign object in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Do we hear, does this go unreported? Because I'm sure that these chips have been found and can't be accounted for. How do we account for that? And how come we don't hear about these reports? Because they
Right.
certainly have to show up on a radar, or not a radar scan,
X-ray.
X-ray scan, right?
Right. My personal opinion, U.S. government comes in and shuts them down. Just my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I would believe
I mean,
that.
I think a lot of these people, like in the Terry Lovelace case, they threatened his life. They separated and sent his best friend that was on that trip and sent him to Japan. But the minute that they got back to the hospital, the men in black, he said there was 2 men in black that came to the hospital room and told them never to talk to one another ever again. And they were best friends. And actually, his buddy ended up committing suicide over the whole deal.
Wow, that's awful.
But yeah, the U.S. government, I mean, I don't know if you watched any of that when that Blue Book show was on TV. I was just fascinated by that. I know it was fictional, but some of it had to be true. And they threatened those people's lives. I'm going to kill your mom and your grandma if you ever say anything. And I mean, look at JFK. JFK was going to blow the cover on the UFO world. Yeah. And if you think his assassination was an accident, here we go down another rabbit hole.
If I recall correctly, too, Terry, 10 days after he wanted these records, he died. He was assassinated. 10 days.
Yeah. He wanted records, and here's the bizarre part. He supposedly in Pillow Talk told Marilyn Monroe 95% of the stuff that he knew, and when they assassinated him, she was going to come forward and tell.
Wow.
That's the story going around the UFO world.
And then, of course, Marilyn Monroe mysteriously
committed suicide.
Well, yeah.
And I have a whole book, and I can't even remember where I got it at. Somebody turned me on to it. And there's groups like, and even Dr. Greer talks about it. The president only knows so much because Jimmy Carter and Reagan was fascinated with UFOs, but they only tell them what they need. And there's secret groups. There's the MJ-12, and there's several other groups. It's all a big secret. They don't even tell the president what we know and what all we can fly and what technology we have. I mean, that book that I have, there's an actual story in there that, and I don't know if you know the story about Eisenhower, but he disappeared for 3 days and everybody thought he was dead. He was supposedly making contracts with ETs. And in this book that I have, it was like how many they could come down and take from the earth. Well, there's your 411 cases. Where's all these people disappearing? They just poof and we never see them again. And in exchange for that, for whatever they want us for, was they would give us technology. I mean, look where we've went in the last 30 years alone in technology.
It's true. It's true.
So, I mean, the more you get to digging on this UFO stuff, I mean, the last 10 years, I've uncovered so much stuff. Even if half of it's true,
Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you really start digging into it.
It sure is. And I do think that a lot of the 401 is attributed to everything.
Yep.
People, I hate these people just call it cryptids. It's not that. Number one, I think it's humans. Number two, I think it could be cryptids. I could be paranormal, portals, UFOs, aliens. I mean, we could talk on and on and on. There's 10 or 15 different subjects that we can talk on for this. And thank you to the lovely Aunt Selene out there live on KPNL Radio. For all you radio listeners, subscribe to Texas Front Porch, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and the Blondes and Booze podcast, if you would. Thank you, Ann. I met Ann in Texas. Wonderful girl. I love her. I respect her. Thanks for all you do, Ann.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So I think. So what do you think, Jay? I think this is all associated, don't you? It's not just one thing when you comes to the missing.
It can't be, especially where they just disappear and there's not a trace. There's not like a shoe out there in the woods, and they look for them. And the ones that fascinate me is when you're in a group and like I might be 5 foot ahead of you and I just disappear, like I didn't roll down in the ravine or I'm just gone. Like where did I go?
Right. And that's common. I've heard a lot of accounts like that, people are just lagging behind just a little bit, and then they
Yep.
turn around, they're gone,
Yep.
never to be seen again. Yeah, it's a crazy rabbit hole for sure.
It is, and that's why I love these rabbit holes. You can talk so much about this stuff.
Mhm.
And let me ask you, Terry, do you think that in your experiences, do you think that you've actually had an encounter with an alien?
No, I've seen crafts, but I've never had. I mean, I think telepathy wise, I've probably made contact with a few, but I've never actually seen one.
Gotcha.
If you're talking about telepathy too, how would we know? I mean, it's kind of just a broad question. How would we know? 'Cause a lot of people say they have telepathy with Bigfoot or the paranormal. How does a person like a novice, how you're just out of the blue? Let's say you're not even into the subject matter. Is there a different vibe you get or a different energy you get when you come across something like this?
I think it's a different energy. I mean, as far as me, it's like the psychic mediums. It's just like,
Yeah.
and when you meditate, how do you know those images and those thoughts that are popping up in your head? Is that just all going along with the story because I'm thinking about aliens or whatever? So I think it's just, there's just a different feeling that you get when they actually make contact.
I could see that too, because for me myself, when I go into a haunted location or a private case or anything, I can tell if it's a regular ghost or an actual, like a demonic entity. Like I can tell the
Right.
difference of what's there, and so I believe that. I believe how I think it would take some practice to figure out which are the good and which are the bad. But I also feel like you could make your intention set too, only love and light, can enter. So if you're of good, you may enter, type thing.
And that's the only bad thing. I mean, we can't prove it. So, I think it's nice to be skeptical, and I always keep a little ounce of that there. But I mean, that's why so many people don't believe some of these stories, because they are so far out and far fetched. And we don't have pictures, or, hey, well, I got that feeling, so I'm pretty sure I contacted with an ET last night. Who's going to believe you,
Right.
It's kind of like, I'm not out to prove it. I know they're there, and I do it for me. And,
I'd say I'm not out to prove anything. I do what I do. I know that I know Bigfoot exists, but I know everything else exists. That's my personal, that's the way I'm wired, right? Everything exists. But what's really disappointing? Okay, and I want your take on this, Terry. You remember we had the Tic Tac, and we had the video that went viral, and then the government had finally came forward, and they said, yeah, that was, they did not, it was a UF, or they say now UAP, right? Unidentified, whatever, aircraft.
Aerial phenomenon. Yeah.
Yeah, I go,
from flying saucers to UFOs, and now it's identified.
When I was a kid,
aerial phenomenon.
Yeah, when I was a kid, it was flying saucer, but I'm a UFO guy. I'm going UFO. So they said they couldn't identify it. They didn't think it was their technology. Then all of a sudden, maybe a month ago, it's identified now as Navy drones. How can these guys say that they couldn't identify it, then they say it's drones? Does that, I mean, I tell you what, this ufology world is more backwards than I think the cryptid world.
Well, and that's your U.S. government stepping in, because somebody got paranoid and said, oh, crap, these Tic Tac things just disappeared in the sea. We need to go look for those. Well, now the government's going, well, I think it was a Navy drone.
Yeah.
Kind of like the weather balloon.
Yeah.
And if you get into Heineck, when he was running when he was doing the Blue Book for the government, that was his job, is to go to these people's house and either threaten their life, I'm going to kill you if you keep talking about you saw an alien, get out of the spacecraft, or it was a weather balloon. They got on TV, and got on the news because they didn't want that.
Yeah.
And you're referring to the whole Roswell, correct? Weather balloon.
Yeah. Roswell was weather balloon.
Yeah.
Sure. But yet, in that other book that I told you was talking about Kennedy and all that, one of those aliens lived, and according to this book, and I can't remember what they named him, but he actually lived and communicated with presidents and high government officials.
Wow.
And he lived for quite some time.
Yeah, you
Wow.
see, I do believe all that, but I got to ask you, do you think that our government, we have a lot aliens? Do you think we have underground bases where aliens are actually kept and against their will, and they're alive and we're experimenting, or you just think that we maybe have just dead bodies from the crashes and such?
I think we have live ones. And I think there are bases underground, because that would be the best place to keep them out of view. And then like Roswell, you get anywhere near it, they got permission to shoot you. So you go ahead and think you're going to be bold and climb that fence, and the government's going to take you out.
So if you think that we have live ones, and I think you're probably correct, then there's no retaliation from other aliens, because they probably have us that have not returned to Earth. You think?
Oh,
that's
I'm sure.
possible?
Yeah, I'm sure that and I don't understand what the exchange is for. Like we were talking earlier, but yeah, I think it's fair exchange, or maybe that's why they're here. Is that why they're still hovering? Because they know that their friends got taken over by the governments. And it's not just the United States. I think Russia's got their fair share of craft too. They've been in the UFO headlines lately about having crafts and underground bunkers and that kind of thing that I've been reading recently.
Well, it goes on. I was telling you the story. We got 46. We got another 6 minutes. We have to go on our first break. I was telling you the story, and I wrote this story. I researched this, and I did this story. So back in 1994, in the state of Michigan, not too close by me, actually, we'll cross on the other side on the west coast of the southern Lake Michigan. There was reports of well over 300 craft. They were red. Their colors were red, green, yellow, pretty like Christmas colors. Some were saucer shaped, some were triangular shaped. And again, the weather stations were called in. They were found on radar, and you could see them from your home if you lived by there. And then all of a sudden, the craft started going westwardly out over Lake Michigan. Now, at this time in 1994, Lake Michigan was 75% covered in ice, thick ice. These craft all got together, and they got a big a big cluster of them got together, hovering. And on radar, they were traveling up and down and all around over 300 miles an hour, but staying on point. Then all of a sudden, they disappeared into Lake Michigan, into the area that was thawed out. The only spot on the lake that was thawed, they happened to all of a sudden vanish in seconds. So I'm thinking that was that a base they went to? Because I've heard of UFO bases in Lake Superior, way over the bridge. And it just makes me wonder, because I know there's underground military bases. They call them DUMBs, DUMBS. But I'm just wondering if there's actual alien life that have bases here on the planet, or if, more directly, in our Great Lakes.
Oh, I'm sure. And there's a triangle up there too, like the Bermuda Triangle, isn't there?
Yeah, Michigan Triangle. Yes, there is. In fact, these craft were over the southern point of the Michigan Triangle.
And on that case, wasn't there like hundreds of people reported actually seeing the craft enter the water? Like there was like policemen and high up official people that you would have to believe that actually witnessed them going into the water.
I researched this because I wrote for Steve Stockton channel, and I did a paper on this, and some people reported they vanished right into the Lake Michigan, disappeared, and entered the water and gone.
I believe there's bases underwater. We haven't even explored a quarter of the ocean, so
yeah. And the other funny thing, I made mention that that was, like you said, here over the Michigan Triangle, and also I mentioned 75% was frozen except for this section.
That one, yeah.
Do you know the next day there were reports because people went out to investigate and they went on Lake Michigan. Do you know that section where they supposedly entered the water was frozen over?
Wow. In
Wow,
less than
that's
24
incredible.
hours. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear
So-
me now?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
I had
You
to go
sound
to my
good.
phone.
I know. You and Brandy. Well, you actually, Krista, you're fine. Brandy's the one that anyways, yes.
Yeah,
The internet.
it's my Wi-Fi here. It's so windy out today, and I got kicked off. So I apologize.
Yeah, no need to apologize. It happens to us all. It happens to me. It's happened to me. And you know what, you guys, we're coming up on our break. We have to take a 5-minute break because everybody listening on iHeartRadio and Odyssey Radio, that's it. But what you can do is you can come back at the second half. You got to subscribe. Bigfoot Michigan Rob channel. You have to subscribe to Texas Front Porch channel. Also, everybody out there, subscribe to the Blondes and Booze podcast. They do a fantastic job. They're part of our team, and I love them. They've got a lot of great information, a lot of good stories, and factual information about encounters. And I think, Teri, we did the UFO thing to death here a little bit, and thank you for that. When I come back, you are a 25 years paranormal investigator, and I know that's right up Krista's wheelhouse as well. And I like to talk a little about your investigations when we come back. So everybody stay tuned. We're taking a 5-minute break, and I appreciate each and every single one of you. See you in a minute.
Okay.
Four minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. Two-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. 1 minute. 1 minute.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome back to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Fantastic guest, Teri. I think it's, I'm sorry, Mosby. I always say Mosby, so you have to correct me when I pull you back up here. Great show. I've learned quite a bit. Again, I'm newer in the field, and so I think Chris is. And fantastic show. Hope you enjoyed it. We're going to switch over to the paranormal here in just a minute. First of all, don't forget, subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube, Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube, the Krista's show with the gals, the blondes and the booze paranormal podcast. And our schedule is Mondays, Texas Front Porch is 7:30 in the East. Tuesdays is Van Buren Variety, 8 o'clock in the East. It's something a little different if you want to take a break from cryptids and all the high strangeness. Beyond BMR, 9 o'clock in the East. Jason does something called Mysterious Library on radio, Untold Radio AM, 10 o'clock in the East. And Wednesday, Jason McLean Questions Everything comes on at 9 in the East. And we're actually doing a series for the next month regarding the Nephilim, something right up Jason's wheelhouse. And I'm excited about that. And in fact, one of our panelists is probably, I don't know what day it's going to be. It's going to be Duke Sullivan, World Bigfoot Radio. He knows quite a bit about the Nephilim. And if you haven't, Duke's come into a little bit of a trife. If you care to donate to his PayPal account, that'd be great. Just to help him out. He's a prideful guy. I'm passing on the message, and that's all I'm going to say on that. Just go check out Duke at World Bigfoot Radio for all the details there. Also, Fridays is Thursdays is Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. That's 1 o'clock in the East. The Blondes and the Booze podcast, again, 9 in the East. Fridays is Brunch is the Blondes, the Booze, and the Woo. Jessica Jones, Spaced Out Radio on the weekends, 10 in the East. She also has a channel of her own that she does great content there. And, of course, Dave Scott, Spaced Out Radio, May 19th through the 21st, his second annual Spaced Out Radio fan party. It's in Las Vegas. Details are on the Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob group page. You can check it out there, and you can also go to davescott.com. I do believe that's the website there. So thank you for that. I'm going to bring up Krista and Teri. Teri, was I saying your last name correctly? I went with Mosby. That was my gut.
That's right.
Oh, good. See, intuition. You got to go with your first gut.
There you go.
That's what I always say. So thanks for coming on. Thanks for enlightening us in the first hour of the show. That was awesome.
Mhm.
And so Teri, outside of your other endeavors, you've been in the paranormal as a researcher investigator for 25 years. Why don't we talk a little bit about that? How'd you get involved with that?
From being a kid, I had experiences when I was a kid. Of course, back then you didn't have a ghost, and then there was a group of us like 30 years ago that used to just gather in the cemetery, and you start catching EVPs on cassette recorders. And back in them days, the old 35 cheap camera, but when you got something, it was exciting. And then the shows came on, and all the teams popped up, and the internet, and it just launched into that.
Yeah.
So so I imagine you've done some investigations, right? Why don't you get into a little bit about what your experiences have been with the paranormal side?
Yeah, I've been on a few teams, but now I actually run After Dark Paranormal based out of Quincy. I've been everywhere, go to a lot of events just to meet people that you see on TV. I've seen probably everything that you can imagine in the paranormal over the years. I've seen full apparitions, shadow people, picked up some amazing EVPs. The only thing that I don't have is video. I have never caught anything on video. And I know people get the pictures and have to draw the red circles around them. I have took thousands of pictures over the years, and there's 2 that I stand beside that I know that's a ghost for a fact. That's my personal opinion. That 2 pictures that I actually have.
Yeah, what Teri's not telling you too is she too also studied demonology under Jeremy Leonard, like I did too.
Oh God, Chris, so you had to bring up the demons.
She's a wealth of knowledge. I told you.
And I've also studied under Dave Giuliani out on the East Coast too. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So whatever
it's just
you want to go down,
I'm not going to
go down it.
Well, and they're far and few between. Me and Krista's worked on a case together, but I mean, they're far and few between. But there's always knowledge, man. I'm like you are, Rob. I'm a sponge. Like, give me a new rabbit hole. Like when I first heard Dog Man, I bet I was up for 3 days. Because you click on a button and oh my God, there's another story. And yeah, I mean, the demonology, I was interested in it just because of some of the cases that I had studied. But it never hurts to have a little bit under your belt.
Yep. Stay open and stay knowledgeable to all of it, because you don't know what you're going to encounter, in any of this. So the more knowledge is power, and you never stop learning. I learn from everybody still every day.
And you're never an expert. I hate that word. You're never an expert.
Yeah, I agree. I have to draw the line. If somebody says, "Hey, I'm an expert in this. I want to be on your show," it's like, okay, go expert that to somebody else, because again,
well, because we don't know. I mean, the things we see flying around, is that UFOs or is that government that we stole from somebody else? And it's like, we carry around all these little gadgets that light and blink. When that thing turns red, is there a ghost standing there? We can't prove that. So, I mean, if you could, then you would be an expert. But in just my opinion, you can't. So,
I agree. We've had lots of encounters. Just know, we can give you our views, just not say, hey, and that doesn't mean our views are correct either, because everybody is different for everybody.
We're not going to know until we get there.
That's right.
And, and too, Teri, it's like, and Krista even knows this, it's like, we all talk about proof. Well, what is really proof, right? A lot of times in these fields, you're in between a rock and a hard place. Sure, you might have a great picture of a dog man or a Bigfoot. Well, you're going to have the naysayers. Well, that's too real looking, so that's got to be a thing.
Right.
And then you've got, well, that's blurry, I can't see it, well, so that's nothing. How do you know what that is? And we really don't know what we're seeing. I mean, I think we did a show last night where a lot of people, inexperienced, and if your intentions are to find Bigfoot, first of all, you're not going to. They will seek you out.
Right.
And a lot of times, I think a lot of these things, for example, if you're in the woods and you see eye shine and it's 10 feet above ground, you think, wow, cryptid. Now, if you're in your bedroom late at night and there's eye shine that's hovering beneath your ceiling, you think paranormal, ghosts, right? So really, what is it that we're looking at?
I think after you're out there so many years, I mean, I have that competitive part where I wanted my team to be number one and everything else. People just need to get to the point where you're doing it for your own research and you don't care what other people think, because like you said, somebody's always going to knock it down. You could have Bigfoot out there waving at you from behind a tree and somebody's going to say, oh, well, where'd they get that costume at?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it comes to a point where you're like, I know there's ghosts and there's aliens and Bigfoot and all the way down the line. And I'm not here to prove it to you. If you want to come out and hang with me and see if we can catch something, or have a personal experience, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not out to prove really anything. I know what I know, and I enjoy doing what I do. I love the mystery of it, and I do like to provide, however, concrete data, which is important. Without that, you're lost without that.
And I think with all of this, we can just talk about our experience and our encounters of what happened to us. And some of my stories sound so far-fetched, like people I find it hard to believe. And that's why when I hear some of these stories that normal, quote, normal people would think are far-fetched, I'm open to listen to it because I wasn't there. I have crazy stories myself,
Well, and I know there's investigators that like to do stuff by themselves. But see, I'm like, well, if I ain't got nobody and something super crazy happens, at least I can go, well, Kristen and I was in this room at Ashmore and we saw this ghost come out way back. I mean, you got at least somebody to back you up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But there's always going to be that person that's not going to believe you. Or, I mean, it comes to a point where, like you said, you do it for the research and that's your passion and your love for whatever you like to do. And that's why I do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's this thing too. I do on my channel, I do subscriber encounter stories, or I'll take emails from people because my email is made public and I get stories that I read on my channel. People love them. Everybody, they love that I do that, and I continue to do that. But I will tell you this, Teri and Kristen, everyone listening, some of these stories that I read are like, really? And I'm not going to vet anybody. Again, I was not in their shoes. My story, my Bigfoot encounter story, is something that I've never been told, hey, I don't believe you. To be honest with you, no one's ever told me that. But to be honest, I don't know that I'd believe my story if I wasn't into the genre.
Right.
How do I see a creature 9 foot tall, reddish brown hair, looks like a human being in the face, then all of a sudden yells, screams, roars at me? I see now black and white. This thing turns into what I could describe as a demon. It switched. It looked like night and day. Girlfriend gets thrown off the boat. I stumble back. I can't move. I'm paralyzed. I mean, that's a great movie. That's a great television story.
Yeah.
But guess what? That happened, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
And if you believe it, you believe it. If you don't, you don't. But it don't matter to me because I will take that to my grave that I seen this thing. And that's what started me in what we're doing today.
Yeah.
So I'm open to everything, and I believe everybody's story to a point. You have to have some skepticism, but who am I to determine? Or I'm not going to publish something. I'm not going to pick and choose what's published.
Right.
Some of my stories are boring. Bigfoot crossing the road. Well, guess what? I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
But if it's, Bigfoot materialized from a stump into a Bigfoot, I'm going to report that too.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Because I think, a lot of the, people talking about, I've said this many times, I was always in the thought of mine that Bigfoot was flesh and blood. I don't believe that anymore. I've come a long way in my beliefs just by talking to people and what I personally have experienced. I think there's more to them than that.
Oh yeah, I don't believe that they're flesh and blood.
Yeah.
I
was going to say, Teri, you kind of had a Bigfoot encounter, didn't you? When you were out UFOing or something?
Well, I had, and I was talking to Rob before the show. Out where I live at across the street is just like a big field. I mean, it's just full of trees, and there's deer and stuff over there. But I walk the dogs anywhere from 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock in the morning. I've got some old ones that are getting up there, so they want to go out. What the heck? So I was out there. It was probably like 3 o'clock in the morning, and probably from where I stand to over in this area, it's probably 3/4 of a football field. This thing let out a yell, and it was so loud that it vibrated in my feet. Like it came across the street in a vibration. I could feel it in my feet, and all 4 dogs look over there, and I'm like, I'm going back to the house. I don't know about you all. But it was a primal, what I would consider a primal scream. I mean, I get on Facebook and listen to where people put those YouTube videos and have the sounds, and one might be a cougar. You can tell the difference between a big cat and something that sounds more ape-like that maybe you've heard in the zoo or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard it twice. The second time I heard it there's probably 3 years in between the two. And when it did it, it was like a short little whoop whoop kind of thing, and I mimic it, and it answered me back. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, here's the thing. A couple comments I'm bringing up. Gene The proof is in the stories you listen and wait to hear the repetitivity in the encounters. And all these people from all telling the same story or almost mostly.
Mhm.
You know, there's not a million people saying the same thing. Nobody goes on YouTube, nobody goes on the radio, and a million people don't, or hundred thousands of people don't copy other people's stories. These people that I
Right.
talk to, at least, every story has a commonality, a
Yep.
common theme, and people are not making this stuff up. I firmly
No.
believe that. I do, because they all have one
Mhm.
element. And another great point too from my buddy Duke out here, and Duke is the authority in this. And this is Duke's, and I kind of agree with Duke on this one. He says, well, they are flesh and blood, but they have paranormal abilities since they can pierce the veil and walk in two worlds. I
Mhm.
like that. And that's kind of
I
where
like
I'm
that.
with. I'm
Mhm.
with that. That's where I'm at with
Yeah.
when it comes to cryptids and Bigfoot. And I think that's pretty much spot on, in my opinion.
Mhm. I would agree with that. Yeah,
When you
because
talk,
I mean,
yeah.
things have happened that I just I can't explain, and so
Well,
I
and we
definitely agree
can't
with that.
find them. And the coolest thing that I ever saw on Bigfoot, I forget what Bigfoot show it was on, but it was on TV. They had a thermal on this
Mhm.
on this Bigfoot. You could clearly tell it wasn't a man. It was huge, and he's walking through like some 3 foot tall grass and some trees, and he picks his one leg up to go over a log. And when
Yep.
he picks up, he's on a thermal cam, and you can clearly see him. And when he picks up that second leg, he just disappears. He didn't go behind a tree. We would have saw it. I mean, this
Right.
thing disappeared out in the middle of nowhere on thermal cam, and I'm like,
Yeah, I know
okay.
what show you're talking about. I seen that too, and that for me was like, that really like, wow,
Yeah.
where did it go? Yeah, I definitely agree with you on there.
You know,
I think it
I've
was
gotten
go ahead, Rob.
no, I've gotten Chris's opinion on this, Terry, and I'd like to get yours, because the Blondes and Boos have turned down opportunities to be on television shows with some pretty, reputable people. I mean, production companies, I should say. And that's the thing. And I know Chris's view is, do you think that some of these paranormal shows, and we can even talk Bigfoot shows for that matter, and I think a lot of these Bigfoot shows that we see, they're entertaining and that's it. I don't think there's any credence to them. And I sometimes think that too about some of these shows on TV. They always find something. Now I know it's like a 1 hour show. They're seeing spirits and ghosts all over. And I know Krista will tell you they can sit in a building for 3 days before they finally get any activity. But do you
Mhm.
think that some of these shows that are being superficial, you think it hinders paranormal research?
Yes, because the people that come out want to see a ghost in the first 5 minutes that they're in the building, and it, like you said, it just don't happen like that, And who's going to watch a TV show? I mean, like Krista, how many times have we went somewhere and drove 5 hours and paid $100 to get in someplace and sit there for 12 hours and not even hear the building creak? I mean, it happens.
Mhm.
It's like a fishing game. Just because you pay the money don't mean they're going to
Yeah.
come out. I mean,
Yeah.
they're probably sitting in the corner going, "Oh God, it's the same questions they asked me last night and the night
Yeah.
before."
Yeah. Terry knows one person in particular that was on several TV shows, same person that I know. And he's even said, that's why it takes 3 months to film these television shows, because a lot of times they are sitting in there and nothing's happening,
Right.
so made for TV, they want to, they have to wait until something happens unless they fake
Well,
it.
and they have to spice it up because you're not going to tune into a ghost show every night, every week,
Right.
just because you like the characters and they don't
Exactly.
constantly find nothing. So I think some of it's made up. It's
Mhm.
entertainment.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't watch very many of the paranormal shows just for that reason, but I do like to
Mhm.
watch them. Like see what equipment they're using, or maybe it's a place that's too far away I'll never get to.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna check it out. But
Yeah.
Yeah. I
and
do
it's
like
like everything else, researching, take for what it is. I mean, I personally love Dr. Greer. There's people that hate him. Get on
Yeah.
there, it's anything in your research. Get on
Mhm.
the videos. If you're looking up Bigfoot, check out more than one person and take what
Yeah.
fits for you or your beliefs. And hey, well, that kind of fits, and I like this guy's views.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, I want to comment on that in a minute too. Brown Dwarf. I got to give a shout out to my buddy Brown Dwarf. He has he has some African print bandanas for me. So shout out to Brown Dwarf. I will be getting in touch with him to get a couple of those. Maybe I'll bring him down to Vegas. Dave Scott wants me to make a sequin bandana with my logo on it. And I think he wants one. So that's yet another thing that I got to look into. But thanks BD Brown Dwarf for that. But I do take these shows with a grain of salt. It's like, I had some information on one of these Bigfoot shows where how they were claiming that they're deep in the wilderness. And they hear all these sounds, and they're immersed. They're roughing it. They're in their tents, sleeping through the night. When I find out from a reputable source that their hotel was not less than a mile away from where they were shooting, and that when I hear things like that, it's like,
well, it's like some of the UFO ranch shows. They have been out on that ranch for how many years? They have millions of dollars to spend, and they still haven't found no concrete evidence. Or like, well, we're going to dig. Well, that was 2 years ago. When are you going to dig? You got radiation coming out of the mountains. I'd be like looking for a cave entrance, or it just don't make sense.
Yeah.
And I get it. They got to stretch it out so they get a new season, but you get tired of watching the same old thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Or they have, and then there's always that cliffhanger where their eyes are wide open. They saw something until next week.
Right.
And then next week comes and goes, and they totally ignored what the last episode was.
Yeah.
So I guess that's frustrating, but.
And that's one thing that people have to understand, be it, starting out, new in the paranormal or even looking for UFOs or looking for, Bigfoot or anything along those lines. You're not guaranteed to see or experience anything. It's not on your terms. It's on theirs. So, you just, as Teri said earlier, have to go in with an open mind and hope for the best, And
I think if you try too hard, you're not going to see anything either.
Exactly. And a lot of locations that we go to, some nights are super active, and then the very next night, hardly anything happens, so you just never know.
And I was going to ask you too, Teri, like we're talking earlier about if you have an encounter, an experience with the paranormal, how do you know? Again, I hate referring back to Krista because I learned a lot from her, but I ask you, how do you know if your paranormal encounter is something that's friendly or if it's something that they have other intentions? Is it an energy you feel, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you would know it. Like if you take on just me personally, if somebody calls us and wants us to come to their house, I always interview them first. But we done one case. It was an older lady, and the neighbors told her because she kept seeing these black shadows, and something would like get in her bed, and it was black. So the neighbors were like, "Oh, black is bad. Black is a demon," and on and on. Well, she bought this house from her best friend who died of cancer, and she is scared to death that she can't afford to move out of this home and get another one. So we go over there, and within probably a half an hour, we're picking up EVPs where this woman is clearly saying her name is Sharon. Sharon was this lady's best friend that died of cancer that she bought the house from. And I told her, it's just like, well, maybe she's just checking in to see if you're happy or how you're doing. So, I always tell everybody, oh, well, I watch this TV show and it's got to be a demon. And I'm like, unless they're throwing things at you and, putting, your pillow over your face when you're sleeping, I think you're pretty safe.
Yeah.
My other thing is, what about if it's grandma and she's dancing in front of your face trying to get your attention because she misses you from the other side? Well, you can't see her. So she's going to have to move that glass, move that ashtray, make a noise so that maybe you'll look in her direction. I think it's just the way that they're trying to contact us. How many times have you been on an EVP session sitting in the dark asking questions and you listen to your recorder when you get home? Well, why don't you listen to your recorder while you're sitting there? Because what about if I ask you something and you answer me and I go, well, I'm not going to get nothing. I'm going to move on down the hallway here. And is the ghost standing in the corner going, but I was talking to you. Why weren't you listening?
Yep.
So
and I got to run something by. Chris has heard this story. I know her thought is a lot of people listening have heard this. I don't think you've heard this. And this is what I asked I've seen all sorts of things throughout my life I'm convinced of now today, right? So, but last year, if people were trying me, this might be sleep paralysis or whatever. So I want your take because every guest that comes on, if we're talking about, I like to get their take. I was up late at night watching something on TV, and it wasn't spooky. It was, I don't know what it was. It was whatever. I forget at the time. I'm sitting in a chair and I look down the hallway to my chair and I see what appears to be a mist. This is hovering 6 inches above ground and it's kind of rolling down the hallway towards me. And I'm sitting there. Now, at this point, I can get up and I go over because right down the hallway, I got my furnace and everything in the back. So I thought maybe for some, this is like 2:33 in the morning. I think, oh man, I got something going on here. So I kind of kick at this mist or whatever. It kind of dissipates. I go check out my equipment, my furnace, everything's fine. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. But I just thought it was strange. I didn't feel any negative energy. I wasn't scared. So I'm like, whatever. I mean, maybe I'm seeing things at 3 a.m. Go back down, watching my show. Now it starts to roll down the hallway again. And now I go to get up again, but now I can't. And I know I'm awake. I'm watching TV, but this thing is coming down the hall. Then it starts wrapping around my chair and circling. And I'm paralyzed. I try to get up and I try to yell out. I can't yell out. I can't move. And all I can do is take my eyes and kind of look at this thing wrapping around my recliner. And just won't go away. And it seems like it lasted for hours. So I called someone about it. They told me I got to get a cleansing. They thought it was maybe something malevolent. I'm like, well, I don't buy that. I'm not going to do that. So nothing happens. 3 months later, it happens again. Comes down, wraps around. But this time I start saying the Our Father, and boom, went away. So I'm thinking it was something. And after that, Terry, I did what I was instructed to do. Haven't had a problem since. So when you hear that story from me, what's your immediate thoughts?
I would say it was up to no good. Whatever it was. I mean, maybe you picked it up from somewhere else, or because I don't think family members would intentionally set out to scare. Because you had to be afraid. If it happened to me, especially the second time, going, oh, hell, here we go again. And it's just funny, if you start reciting the Lord's Prayer and it stops. To me, in my opinion, that would be some kind of a energy that didn't have your best intentions, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree that I picked up something, and Krista probably agrees to that because years ago when I was married, I used to collect antiques with me and the wife. And everything was fine, no negative energy in the house. We start collecting these antiques. Then all of a sudden we start seeing shadows in the house.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I brought somebody into the house and they said, yeah. And then they did an investigation. So then they asked about the curio cabinet in the foyer where all these collectibles were. They said, we just started collecting these things not too long ago. Then they asked, did you have problems prior to this? And we're like, no, it happened after we brought these things in.
Right.
And like Krista says, a lot of these things, you don't know what you're picking up, where they've been or whatever. We didn't bless them. We just thought they looked cool and we want to put them in the house.
Right.
So I take all of these collectibles, whatever, trinkets, and I put them in the garage, in the corner of the garage. About a couple weeks, as soon as I did that, energies were not negative no longer. Everything was back to normal. About 6 months later, I do some spring cleaning in the garage. And I put all this stuff in the corner. Now I open the garage and there's not any shadow. You can't cast a shadow. The way the sun was setting, it was just dark in the garage, but lit up enough where you could see though. So sure enough, I'm in there 10 minutes and there was shadows were superimposed over the darkness of the inside the garage. I call the wife out. You got to see this. Well, of course, there's nothing there. I said, just hang out. It's going to come back. She hangs out for about 10 minutes. All of a sudden, it reappears. We're scared as hell. I grabbed the stuff, loaded it in my pickup truck, and took it to a local dump is what I did.
I don't blame you. I think I would have too. For it to manifest twice, while your wife comes out and is looking too, you can't just brush that off.
And we both saw that together. even my Bigfoot encounter or whatever encountered, I saw it with my girlfriend at the time together. So I was fortunate that I had somebody with
Mhm.
me,
Right.
except for the chair incident, I was by myself, which again,
Right.
but I started seeing things more vividly, more lucid after I had an encounter. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier in the show. If you see something for the very first time, you're more apt to see things
Mhm.
in the future,
Right.
much like I do believe I seen these things when I was 7 or 8 years old.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and don't you think they kind of pick up, like, as far as the paranormal, after you've done it so many years, they're like, oh, well, you really want to see something. You've been doing this. Like, I'm a part-time caretaker at Ashmore Estates. I can't tell you over the last years how many hundreds of times I've been there. So, like, when I come in, when I unlock the door and turn off the security system, I'm like, hey, I'm back, guys. What's up? And, and we're
Mhm.
walking around and you're cleaning, and they're like, oh, well, here she comes again. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I have seen the wildest stuff at Ashmore Estates. And is it because I'm there all the time and they're used to me coming in? And I mean, I was up there sweeping, like some chunks fall. So we walk the building before the teams come up and just like do spot check, and sweep up if there's a mess of whatever. And so I'm out there sweeping one day up on the third floor. It's hotter than hell in there. And I can hear them out in the hallway. I can hear people walking. The door's locked. I'm the only person in there. I know that I'm the only person in there. So I shout out and go, hey, it's hotter than hell in here. Can y'all want to like grab the bucket or the shovel or something and help me out? And then they went away. Or you'll hear a giggle, or it's just like, I think they get used to people, or maybe they can pick up. I mean, we're all energy. So, if you've been UFO hunting for a long time, if you go out and you start inviting these things in, are they like, okay, well, she's really serious because, we're picking up on her intentions or her energy. She's been doing this a while,
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with you too, because same thing you were talking about, you've been to Ashmore that many times. Well, I've been at the Ray County
Great
Museum.
County.
And those spirits there, they know me.
Yep.
I'm some of them, you walk in and you say, hey, and who's who, and and I think they get to know who you are, after time.
Right. Or like at the museum, you're in there cleaning. Well, I'm really glad she cares enough about this place that, it's been standing for 100+ years, and they're in there sweeping and cleaning up the place. Do they appreciate that? I mean, my big question is, like, do they see Ashmore the way it used to be or the way it looks now? I mean, it's in damn good condition for 110 years old, but
right. Yep. My encounter, I had a pretty cool encounter at Ashmore myself, and it was too up in the third floor. And I was in one of the rooms when you come up the steps on the far side by where the bunk side is, I was in one of the first room up there, and Jeremy, Tony, and Danny was out in that big open area, and I was in the room by myself, and I had plaster thrown at me, and that was kind of cool. I'm like, hey, it doesn't scare me anymore.
Right.
There probably was a time where I would have run out like a little girl, but it was just, I feel like they were more or less trying to make contact with me, like, hey, who is she, type thing.
Yeah. And don't you think, though, after a while, even in Bigfoot, anything that you're out there looking for, they got to know, oh, well, I'm that girl over there. If we don't appear, she's going to be pissed off. And, I think they can read you. Don't you think they can read that energy that,
I feel like they can read.
You're not going to be scared of them and run out screaming. You're going to be fascinated or just be amazed at what happens.
Right. And I also feel like they know our intentions too. They know even if somebody doesn't go in there and start taunting or anything like that, I still think they know their intentions, what they're there for. Where somebody like you and I, we don't do that. We go in there and we treat them with respect as if they were a living person. I think they know that.
Yeah.
Well, don't you think Bigfoot too? Because you mentioned when you guys went to LBL, you're just sitting around the campfire. You're not beating down the brush going, hey, I heard a branch snap. I'm going to go run up the hill as fast as I can.
Right. Yeah, that was it. Our intentions weren't bad there. We were just wanting to see what was happening, or if something would happen. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, that is definitely top of my list. Gosh,
I know that place fascinates me too. I've heard so many stories now.
Yeah,
it is. I gotta get organized and see, and I gotta prioritize all my trips I got to take here this year.
Yeah. Well, I'm still trying to talk you, Robin, to come into Malvern Manor with us.
Oh gosh,
also.
yes, Iowa.
And that's in July. Yeah, Teri will be there, and Tex is coming, and that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I've been there a
I
couple
know.
times. That place is pretty cool.
Yeah, again, it's I gotta look at all these things.
Yeah.
Again, I'd love to do it. I'm not scared or anything
Right.
like that. But you know me and the paranormal, Krista. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, you got all of us to protect you. You got me,
Yeah, I
Brunch,
know.
and Teri. We won't let
Yeah.
that happen to you.
Yeah. And when you're traveling with 3 beautiful women, I certainly am protected. Teri, we're coming up towards the end of the show. Is there any place that you like to share where we can find you, look you up? I don't know if you got a email
I actually
or
have. You can get a hold of me on my Facebook page, and then After Dark Paranormal has a Facebook page, and then I actually moderate for Blondes and Booze, and so yeah, I'm out there everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Well,
people interested in Dr. Greer, I do have a CE5. It's CE5 Illinois, our Central Illinois group, where I am trying to get a group together and a place maybe that we could go, and just sit outside at nighttime. And
yeah, and what I'll do too is after the show, I'll put your link on Blonde's page, on BMR's Facebook page, as well as Texas.
okay,
So people
and check
can go
into that
there
Kansas City place. Maybe we can come over there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Aaron had went to.
Yeah.
And with that being said, Krista, what do you have going on tonight?
Tonight, we have a cool show. We have we're just doing a woman's thing tonight, and we're going to go wherever it takes us. It's I have Cryptid Huntress Jessica is coming on, Letitia Nunnally, and Nana Boss. So it's going to be fun. We're going to talk. If it's weird, we're going to talk about it.
Well, it better be weird. It better be weird. And don't forget, everybody. Thanks for that. Yeah, I'll definitely be there. Thanks to everyone subscribe to Krista over there, Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast, Bigfoot,
Appreciate
Mr. Rob, Texas Front Porch, and everybody, World Bigfoot Radio. Hey, go check him out. If you can help him out, help him out. I would appreciate that, because we all come. Hey, sometimes shit happens, as they say, and Duke's a great guy, and he certainly could. Whatever you could do, you can do. But with that being said,
we've all been there, so you know what.
And so I appreciate everybody in chat, everybody listening later. I appreciate it. Until next time, for Krista and for Teri, BMR is out.
See you later.